neighborhood.
Baka area? That's like a Shidduchim hub over there now.
Yeah. I mean, I would sort of call it the Upper West Side of Israel, but with a big lahavdil, much holier, whatever.
It's interesting because when I delve into some of the numbers, according to Shagririm Balev's website, they set up about 240 marriages within the last just 12 months.
I think that like everybody, guys and girls, for different reasons, I think are just a bit too picky, and I mean that, and like myself included, by the way. I live in Baka. I know a lot of really incredible, like very impressive people, in their upper 20s, 30s, 40s, and it just hasn't happened. They haven't met the right one, right? I haven't either. I'm 30, right? And I just wonder if maybe a big part of that, as much as there are these issues with the system, is somewhat our own fault, that we're just a little bit shooting ourselves in the foot and just thinking like, well, I'm friends with that person and we've been friends for so long and we're like in the friend zone, like I can't just like flip that switch and why not? Like give it a try. You have nothing to lose, and I feel like at this point we're adults and like we should just be mature about it and give it a shot. I think on both ends.
Sarah and Max, an unlikely pair in this wild podcast, they're the perfect flair. Sarah's charm, so feminine and free, a Cali girl spirit under the podcast tree. Max a strong force with a punch in every word. Together they navigate the dating absurd. Don't forget to hit subscribe, join the crew for more laughs and tales just for you. Now back to the show.
And welcome back to another great episode of Good for Shidduchim. I am your host, Max Landesman. I have a special guest, Elliot Heller. For those of you who tuned in a few episodes previously, we had Elliot's mother on, and she had quite the insight into Shidduchim, and also the fact that I believe she knew Elvis Presley personally because they lived in the same building, which is kind of cool. But anyways, welcome to the show, Elliot.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you being on. I know you're currently in Eretz Yisrael right now, right?
Yeah.
Currently, yeah. How long have you been living there?
I made Aliyah almost 3 years ago. So I live in Jerusalem, in the sort of the Baka neighborhood.
Baka area? That's like a Shidduchim hub over there, no?
Yeah, it's sort of like
Friday night davening.
Yeah. I mean, I would sort of call it the Upper West Side of Israel, but with a big lahavdil. A big lahavdil, much holier, whatever. But like, also technically Tel Aviv these days might be more of a better comparison because there's a lot of Anglos there now as well. But,
oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely heard of the Baka area. Yeah, but people like say hello to each other and that kind of thing. So,
right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anyways, so. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to throw in, my mom wanted me to mention, I think she said it when she was on, but just that, how you like to hate on the Upper West Side, that when back in her day, people actually wanted to get married when they lived there, and it wasn't always such a sort of toxic place, sort of perpetual bachelorhood. So, I never actually lived there. I lived in Washington Heights for many years, but the last couple of years that I was in New York, I would walk down a lot on Shabbos to the Upper West Side or spend Shabbos with my friends and spend more time there. And I enjoyed it, but I definitely can see why it could be a lot, to sort of get lost in that scene.
Yeah, no, it's a good take for sure. And the whole happening of this episode is due based on your mom. Your mom mentioned this new concept, Shagririm Balev, which is apparently taking the Shidduchim world by storm. And if even a quarter of what's said about them is true, that would make them the number one dating platform today by far. It's not even close. And so we definitely wanted to get into that. And currently you are an ambassador for them. So before we get into that, why don't you give us a little bit of a background as to how did you even get involved in Shagririm Balev, and then we'll get into what you think of it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm pretty sure the way it happened was, when I made Aliyah, a friend of mine from YU who had moved here a couple years earlier had been on the site. A couple friends had been on it, and they told me about it. I think they were trying to recruit me as what they call a candidate, like a single. And I think someone else, I just heard from a few people, and looked into it, and it seemed pretty cool. So I reached out to them, and I think, there was a quick interview, and then you sign up through the ambassador, your friend who's your personal shadchan, and each ambassador has to have like ideally a minimum of 3 people, and it's like they only search for those people. Technically, they could search for other people, but it's a cool concept, and I guess I'll just start out by saying that it's not really reinventing the wheel, meaning it's very similar overall to this classic like Saw You at Sinai and JWed, whatever, like that type of thing, with matchmakers making matches for people. The key difference I think is, I guess, that if the matchmaker is somebody you know, so unless like you sign up and you don't know anybody and they'll assign you to someone, but the vast majority of the cases are where they're, you know, you get recruited by a friend who wants to search for you, so the person has more of an idea of what you're looking for, um, and I think it's just a little more personal that way. And the other thing is that, you know, anyone can be an ambassador. So I'm single, and a lot of people who are ambassadors are single themselves. Whereas most of these other sites, you have to be married. And you know, I think I can sort of see where they were thinking that though it's safer if people are married, they're not looking for themselves or conflicts of interest or whatever. But I think that ultimately, and this sort of main theme of what I want to talk about, is that I think um, it's much better when they empower singles, because I think singles know what they want and what each other want more than someone who's married, especially, you know, people who are older, somewhat middle aged, which is fine, you know. But I'm saying if I'm in my 20s, I probably want someone who's also in my 20s to be looking out for me, just because they just know more people personally. You know, it's just more direct. And so I think that's a big advantage of it. And just another, again, like I'll just be upfront about it. Like they actually told me, you know, you can't just search for people for yourself and like message people. Like that's obviously defeats the purpose, and then it'll be like the worst nightmare. And that's why those other websites have those rules, right? But they said, like, look, if you're looking for a friend and you see somebody and you're not sure if they're good for your friend, but you think maybe they're good for you, so you can ask your ambassador who's like searching for you, like, hey, can you search this girl? Um, and I think that's our guy, right? I just think it's sort of a common sense way of doing things. Cuts out a lot of the red tape and middlemen and sort of official procedures, which I think can sort of hinder us more than they actually help us.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I delve into some of the numbers, according to Shagririm Balev's website, they set up about 240 marriages within the last just 12 months. And just putting that into context, assuming that number is legit, if you look at Y Connects or anyone else, Y Connects, I believe, set up, I think, about 700 matches, but they've been around for about 20 years. Shagririm Balev, so that comes out to be about 35 matches a year. Shagririm Balev is dwarfing that, 240 matches. And everything you're telling me, I know you mentioned it's like, you know, they seem to be very similar, but to me, it sounds like, you know, my biggest critique of these other sites is you have random shadchanim who just forward random matches. They don't actually know the people. With this, it sounds like you can't actually even forward just some random person. You have to speak to the other side and like actually hash it out and see, because I know of, and I will say this all the time, where I know 2 confirmed cases of people I know that were set up with their sister on YU Connects. And so like, but I thought it was so customized. It's obviously not customized. With this, do you find that to be obviously the biggest difference here is because it seems to be a little bit more personal?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's it's never happened to me, but that's funny. Yeah, I think it's definitely helpful that, um, yeah, I think it's a common sense way the way they set it up. So it's what happens is an ambassador sees somebody, they do a search for their person, they open a suggestion, open the match, and then it goes to the other person's ambassador. And the ambassador can use their discretion and say, you know, this just is not a good idea for whatever reason, and say that, and that'll be the end of it. Or they can say, looks good to me, and then they'll get permission. Can I share this with my candidate, with my single? And you know, if then that happens, so they actually just made it a little more secure. They changed how they do it. So it used to be like you'd get a PDF and you'd send it on WhatsApp to your person. And now, partially because of Israeli privacy laws, which are like very strict, actually, for like security reasons since the war started. But overall, also I think they wanted to do this. It makes more sense. They have like a personal zone, they call it. Like, in other words, candidates can log on themselves and see the matches themselves. So you just sort of like insert it in their zone, whatever. You send it to the candidate, and then they tell you if they're interested or not and what the reason is, and then they go back and forth like that with the candidates. So with the ambassadors. So off the top of my head, I'm not sure it's too different from like why you connect Sayu at Sinai. But I think the fact that it's somebody presumably your ambassador, it's like that adds that personal touch, and it's less likely for them to just throw stuff up there, right? You have some shadchanim who are, thank God, very successful overall, but if they have 20 or 30 people they're searching for or more, it's not going to be easy to remember everybody's preferences. And I think I've always thought about this sort of dichotomy or this dilemma that a shadchan might have, right? Because on the one hand, you want to make good suggestions, right? But on the other hand, you also have a limited amount of time, and this is all volunteer for most of them. And I understand that it's like, well, I have, I don't know, 20 minutes I can devote to it today. Um, why don't I just put like 20 matches out there, right? Problem is, if they're not, any of them are really thought out, it's not gonna, they're kind of wasting their time. And then you get the false hope, you get an email, oh, got a new match. And it's like, I put like two or three things that are like deal breakers, and like they just ignored them. Like that just clearly violates one of them, right? So I think a lot of us have had that, and it's frustrating when that happens. Versus if someone would just take those 20 minutes and send out two or three matches that they really think out carefully, it might be more successful. And I guess, because it's somebody it's just more likely for that to happen, I think.
Right. And so you're on there both as an ambassador and a single, right?
Yeah.
So have you seen at least a difference as far as the quality of matches, or is it primarily just the same in your experience?
I don't know. I think, yeah, I guess I haven't noticed a huge difference. Then again, like I don't sort of like think of it that in terms of that. Like I don't think that the fact that they're on one side or the other, I think people are really doing their best. It would be interesting to try and do like a data kind of study of that, or even a qualitative thing where you ask a bunch of people that question and you just ask me. I don't think I personally have, but again, like you said, if Shagririm's stats are correct, then yeah, presumably it's much more successful. Yeah.
Like, have you been set up with people that obviously were totally not just not for you, but as you mentioned, you have certain deal breakers. Like, for example, you'll date someone who's in Israel. I know friends who said they don't want to date anyone that wants to make Aliyah because they want to remain in the States, but then they're set up with someone who absolutely wants to make Aliyah. Have you ever gotten anything like that on Shagririm?
Yeah, that's a big one. I don't remember specifically if that's happened on Shagririm. Like I can't think of a case. I mean I've been on like Why You Connect Sly at Sinai for like a long time, so so like it definitely has happened. It's not an indictment against them. I don't know exactly how often. I usually am also just pretty good at just like open, see, no good, delete, move on. Like I don't usually get my hopes up too high just because of the statistics with these things. But yeah, I think also sometimes you have to be specific with your settings, because sometimes I'll put like I'm open to dating someone in America if they want to make Aliyah, right? And I at least saw you at Sound Why You Connects has like a yes, no, or maybe thing, So I've had at different times like a maybe is okay or only a yes, and I think sometimes like those settings can be a little tricky, because then there's like, oh, this is like strict, or this is like let the person use their discretion if they think there's a really good case. So I'm not really sure if that's an issue with like the systems there, or if it's just the shadchanim see it and ignore it. But yeah, either way, I think I personally think that the big advantage of the site is the fact that like anyone can be an ambassador, and like I just feel like they treat you a little bit more like adults like that. Like I have a sister, my sister, who was she's recently divorced, and when she got divorced, she could no longer be a shadchan on this site that she was a shadchan on, and I was like, that's terrible, because she loves doing it, she was great at it, I mean, good at it, whatever. I don't know if she made successful shidduchim, but like she enjoyed doing it, and I'm like, just because she's no longer married, she no longer like has the mind for that. Like I feel like we're shooting ourselves in the foot when we do things like that.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that. That's pretty messed up. That's crazy. So if Shagririm says and makes a claim that they set up 240 matches just last year, do you feel like that's true?
I have no idea, honestly. It wouldn't surprise me though, because like in Israel, especially Shagririm Balev, I didn't say, and I guess you might be interviewing the founder after this or before this, or someone in the senior staff there. It
Sure.
actually started, yeah, it started in Machon Lev, which is the Jerusalem College of Technology. It's an Israeli college in Jerusalem, with like it's a lot, like the main demographic that goes there is like modern Orthodox, or as they say, Dati Lumi to like Haredi Light or whatever. Um, and so that's a men's school, and they have Makon Tal, which is the women's school. And so this site was originally just for like those campuses to make matches between them. So I think that's a population where like they don't like to waste time and mess around and whatever. Like it's like the opposite of the Upper West Side. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right, right,
people
right.
they're already like post army or whatever. They're in their early to mid 20s and they want to get married. So it wouldn't surprise me that if that's the case.
That's an interesting take. So you're saying like not necessarily about the platform, it's just the people are just so different. Like they actually want to get married versus just, you know, just fool around.
Yeah, I think overall, like again, and Shagririm has made an effort the past couple of years to really expand to America and worldwide. So I'm not sure how long that it will take to seep into the numbers, but their primary user base of what it started was Israeli, and I think a little more serious at wanting to get married sooner. So I think that seeped into it. But what you mentioned about like the people, and like I do want to also say that like um, I've been thinking about this because I used to also sort of be very frustrated with these shotgun. I mean, sometimes things come up where I am still. But I think overall, like I said, I think everyone's sincere. They're wanting to help, and the way I see it is like sort of the more the merrier. So like if some I get like a lot of sometimes random WhatsApps from a shotgun who's like, oh, I saw your resume on someone's database or whatever. Like, are you looking? Are you whatever? And it's like some like middle-aged woman who I have no idea lives in Lakewood. Who knows, right? But I'm like, here, why not? Like, you want to help me out? Like, I'm open to it, right? Um, and there's been dates from there, right? I think personally, like a big part of the problem and why people are single, it feels like later than they should be potentially in a culture where we want to get married and we value, you know, having families and passing on everything to the next generation. I think that like everybody, guys and girls, for different reasons, I think are just a bit too picky, and I mean that, and like myself included, by the way. But in terms of like just agreeing to an idea, maybe even a second date, I think that for men, it's like most, again, like I'm making generalizations here. A good amount of the time, it's because like of looks, or they don't feel attracted to the girl or to the picture or whatever it is, or they're just holding out for someone who they just find like really beautiful. Um, and I've had like very mixed feelings about this because on the one hand, like I believe that connection is something that builds, and obviously looks deteriorate over the course of somebody's life. At the other hand, like you have to be attracted to somebody. You can't marry somebody and date somebody and force yourself to do that if you don't have that romantic connection and that spark. And I know people who have done that actually. I have a friend who did that, and he ended up getting divorced a couple years later. And like I didn't ask him this, but he like just mentioned off the cuff, like, yeah, I don't know, like I was kind of attracted to her, but not really, and I just figured it would happen. And I was just like, wow. So I think that's like a very delicate question. But for me, I sort of have like a rule or a scale where I think like first of all, I try never to judge based on just one picture because I think that often I'm very not photogenic myself, and I think that anyone can have just a bad picture or a picture that I don't connect to. But so I'll try and look them up on Facebook or online or ask for another picture. And then I think like if it's there's just like no attraction, like I just don't not feeling anything, so I'm not going to waste my time. And I've learned that through experience, right? And it's wasting her time also. If it's something like in the middle, like maybe I'm not sure, so I'll try and give it a shot. Like I'll look at the bio, I'll look at everything else, personality, the religious fit. I think we owe it to ourselves to try and do that. And again, it's not something that I always adhere to because sometimes I'm just like emotionally exhausted. And it's just like, do I really want to give this a shot if I feel like it's only a 10% chance, right? But I think it's important that guys try and do that because I've also been in the experience where, there's been women who I was not so attracted to or just wasn't so into and just didn't go for. And then like a year later, they're in a relationship with somebody else and maybe I'm friends with them or whatever. And it's like, oh, you know what? She is pretty. Like what was I thinking? Right. So I think that that's like a balance for guys to try and find, and just like you don't really lose anything by going on a date again, unless you're just emotionally exhausted and it's just been like too many this month or this year or whatever. So of course, know yourself. But I think that's really an important balance to strike. And I think for girls, just in from a guy's perspective, but also talking to some like I think that a lot of times women go based on their intuition. which is good and has served them well historically, obviously. But I think sometimes to a fault. I think sometimes, they'll be looking for something very specific or a specific feeling, and sometimes they'll judge based on very much the first impression or the first phone call or text or something. Where I feel like, and I think guys do this also, not just about the looks. I think that, um, I live in Baca. I know a lot of really incredible, like very impressive people, in their upper 20s, 30s, 40s, and it just hasn't happened. They haven't met the right one, right? I haven't either. I'm 30, right? And I just wonder if maybe a big part of that, as much as there are these issues with the system, is somewhat our own fault, that we're just a little bit shooting ourselves in the foot and just thinking like, well, I'm friends with that person and we've been friends for so long and we're like in the friend zone. Like I can't just like flip that switch and why not? Like, give it a try. You have nothing to lose, and I feel like at this point we're adults, and like we should just be mature about it and give it a shot. I think on both ends.
Yeah, that's interesting. My dad actually told me a story about when he was in high school. He went to a public school, and so prom was coming up. And my dad was a frum guy, so he wasn't going to go to prom. He's not like a yeshiva guy or anything, but like he obviously kept Shabbos, so he wasn't going to go to prom. I think it was like a Friday night or something. And then he sees this like drop dead gorgeous girl that like walks by the door, and he was like, "I'm curious." He asked around like, "I'm curious who she's going to prom with." Turns out that she's not going to prom. My dad was like absolutely aghast at like how I understand a girl like her is not going to prom. What ended up happening was like all the guys thought automatically that because she's so good looking that she must be going to prom with someone. So no one actually asked her. I think it's a very apropos to I think what you're saying. And I think this works on both sides. I think especially with the guys, or don't assume anything until you actually ask. And especially it's like, what do I think you nailed it. I think there is a certain thing. It's like, somebody for a while and you're like, there is a certain hesitation to essentially go for it. But you're not going to find out unless you actually ask. You got to, grow a pair and you just got to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise,
No, and I think also, yeah, for sure. And I think, yes, and also I think you might have a hesitation yourself. Be like, am I actually interested? Do I actually want to do that? Like, could it ruin our friendship, or can I even flip that switch? And it's like, again, like I view it as like a worst case scenario. You have a nice night. You have a nice like you get a coffee. You have like you get to know each other on a little bit of a deeper level, and it could be that's all it is. Just a fun night getting coffee.
Yeah.
And I personally like. I also like. There's another reason to go on dates. As much as you can. I think reasonably within reason is that I've been on dates where I could just tell within the first few minutes there just wasn't going to be that spark, but I still had a good time. Like you're just meeting a person and you're just having a conversation with them like for an hour or whatever it is, and like you're not on your phone and you're just exchanging stories and perspectives, and it's just like it's a good thing to do in life. I feel like so. It's another reason to just sort of like why not, and sort of the cliche of like date them till you hate them or whatever that the equivalent of that is for like going on a first date or second date. Like I think it's an important thing that we all could maybe try and do a little more.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I mean, the date him till you hate him. I have certain, I think it's a very good marketing thing to say. And obviously, the way Aliza explains it is obviously it does sound a lot different than what she whatever. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, but
Yeah, like I think there's a limit, right? Like if it's been a certain amount of dates and it's just not going anywhere, like what are you doing, right?
yeah. I do think there's I do have a friend who mentioned that he was going out with his now wife. He went out on like 7 dates and he felt like it was just very par or whatever it is. And all of a sudden they just had like a brutally honest conversation or something like that, or they got into some sort of argument. I don't really know. I don't really remember the exact details, but for whatever reason, that kind of sparked something. And obviously now they're married. So I do believe though, like there's got to be something like down there that you want to at least continue, because imagine going out 7 times and you like, there's just nothing there. Like, I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people we can get along with, we can have good conversations with. And then the question is like, is there that romantic spark that I want more, that I'm really excited to see them, right? So it's maybe like trying to create those moments. Like I have a friend who recently ended she'd only been on 5 or 6 dates with this guy or something. I don't know. But actually, it lasted 5 or 6 weeks because they've been busy. And she's like, yeah, he's great. Like we get along well, but like there's just not that spark, And but she was saying like I'm gonna try and talk to him about that. I'm gonna try and see if we can like create that, and whether that means like maybe having like a bit more of a romantic date environment or like just making some kind of effort or talking about it. Like, you owe it to yourself to like to try for that. And if it's not happening, it's not happening.
Right.
And you move on. But
Yeah. I Yeah, one of my biggest critiques on the Upper West Side actually is and I'm not going to do any bashing or anything like that. It's just something I legitimately have seen with my own eyes is and again, it's not every girl on the Upper West Side, but I would say a lot of them. And in personal experience with me and my friends, that when we go to Upper West Side events, that when you're in a social setting, especially with women, that when you're talking to them, if they feel at any moment that you are not their spouse, they find zero value in having a conversation with you. And what I've seen is that literally midway through a conversation, a girl actually would walk away during a conversation, like mid conversation.
on a date or
Not a
just
date, just
no, no,
a
no. Like someone you
it's an event. It's in the
yeah,
Upper West Side. There's food, whatever. It's a hangout.
yeah.
I've seen it with me. I've seen it with my friends that legitimately mid conversation, she just walks away.
I hear you. I don't know. Like if it's like mid sentence and it's just like really rude, like I hear that. That's not good, obviously. I think though the thing with these things is that it's sort of like you have limited time and there's other people you want to talk to maybe, and like I think I've been guilty of this also. Like you're talking to one person, your eyes are sort of wandering around the room to see who else is there, even if you kind of like the person, but you want to see, right? So I don't know. I
All
can't I
right.
can't speak to that. I'll take your word for it. Like it doesn't feel good to be have someone be that rude to you.
That I
But
understand because,
yeah,
and I do this I just went to a barbecue. And obviously you want to move around the room, but you don't have to do it mid sentence. There's a way to do it. For example, and I know women have told me they find it more difficult because to like end the conversation because sometimes the guy will go on and on and on. But sometimes you do have to you can total like you could draw the line and be like, hey, listen, it was really great meeting you. I like to talk to other people. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
yeah.
The issue I had was literally mid conversation to do something like that, as opposed to saying it was really nice meeting you. Hope you have a great rest of your night. I just want to grab a drink or something. And if the
Right,
guy wants to like follow, then you can just kick him in the nuts and say like, I'm sorry, you're not coming with me.
right, right, right.
Like at that point, I don't know. But anyways,
Yeah, yeah. I know. I
yeah,
wonder if like I feel like sometimes I've sort of walked away if there's been like not even with like dating or like a singles thing. It is like a kiddish, and I'm seeing somebody who I kind of know a little bit, whatever, and say hi, and like it's not that I leave when they're in the middle of like asking me a question or something, but it's like we say something and then there's like maybe like 1.5, 2 seconds of silence, and then I feel like okay, I can sort of inch away and go to someone else now. Or I feel like some people do that too. So I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about or if it's like more abrasive and obvious, which obviously is not good.
I would say it's more abrasive and obvious.
Gotcha.
It was yeah, anyways, I do have to ask you about feminism at all because I've mentioned on a previous podcast about the incident that I've had. And of course, it was in my favorite spot, the Upper West Side, because where else can this possibly have taken place other than the Upper West Side? But when I went to go open the door for her and she got upset at me and said, like, I'm a strong, independent woman, I can open up my own door. Do you see that at all? I feel like that doesn't exist in Israel.
Really exists some places, like there are liberal people here in Tel Aviv and even Jerusalem, but like I don't think it's the norm at all. Yeah, I feel like if you're on a date with somebody and you're trying to sincerely make it work, especially if it's like the first date, like you can mention something like that without getting all up in arms, or you can mention it later. Like a great example, a great thing to do in that case would like let him open the door for you. And then let's say you really do have an issue with that, or you just sort of, or maybe not that specifically, but like you're more of a feminist and you're wondering what his views are. You just like bring that up at dinner, or just say like, hey, like I was just by the way, like I noticed you opened the door for me. It was very nice, but I was just curious because I come from a more feminist background. I'm just like what your perspective is on that because X Y Z. So yeah, I haven't seen that. Even in America, I don't think that happened to me, or I haven't really heard of that happening so much. But Yeah, I think like when you're on a date with somebody, like you have to decide like, do you want to make this try and make this work or not? Like you're gonna have to I try and for both the guy and the girl, like try and forgive like, little things initially, like they're a human being, so are you. You also make mistakes. If it's to the point where it's like, you feel like the date's been going on a while and it's not going anywhere, and you almost feel like you're being held hostage and like whatever, then or you're just offended by something they said, then that's another story. But I think like making a comment like that right away is like it's just not considerate, and it's not giving the guy or the girl a chance to say, okay, maybe we have different perspectives on this issue. Like maybe we can talk about that instead of making assumptions and accusing the other person of like violating your norms.
Yeah. So if we were to talk about biggest takeaways, I guess from our conversation today, what would yours be?
Um, I think, yeah, I think for like it's two tiered. Like for me, like for the Shadchanim, like try and relate to your people as adults. And I also just want to touch on this while we're on the subject. The whole thing with the shidduch resume, which by the way, I really probably also, I just hate that term. Like it's not a job interview. Like I call it a bio or a profile or a blurb, like anything like that. Like I'll,
Yeah.
I'll I'll use it sometimes for shorthand if there's no other choice. But like I really think we should try and like move that out of the lexicon and just call it something else, because this is not whatever. I think it reinforces the notion that like I just picture these like, Shadchanim ladies with their stacks of files and resumes and making these, and like we should try to move away from that to like more personal connections, like we've been saying. But I think in terms of like, okay, sorry. Let me just like go on this little rant and then I'll answer your
Yeah,
question.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of like the resume and bio, so I think I've been sometimes sent bios from people, and all it is their biographical information, and like very detailed, of course, like what their parents do, what all their siblings do, where they live, who
Right.
they're married to, how many kids they have, like completely irrelevant information. I'm really not sure what that's about, unless you're just really trying to keep up with the Joneses and marry the highest in
Hi,
society.
sir. Yeah.
But yeah, but like, and that's it. There's no about me section at all. And for me, like that's like besides like seeing a picture and seeing if I'm attracted to them, or seeing how old they are, what they do in life to give me some kind of idea, like seeing that, even if it's like 2, 3 sentences, like that can give you a big idea of what they're about and if you can drive. Stephen Covey's book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which I think is great, by the way. He mentions,
I've read
not
it.
in this context, yeah. So he mentions this concept of the mission statement, not about dating, but just like for yourself. Like you should every few months or every year or whatever it is, sit down with your spouse or whatever, and just write down like a paragraph or two about like what it is you stand for. What like why are you in this world? What is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish? And there's like a vision statement also, whatever it is. And I think that's like that's such a healthy exercise. And if you can like put that on paper, and it's like, yeah, it's a little bit awkward talking about yourself sometimes, but everyone does this. It's like the whole point of these things. I think it clarifies for yourself what you're about and what you're looking for, and it helps the other person see that as well. So I think that's like much more important than any of these other biographical things. And on that note, it really irks me when I see a blurb that's written, but it's written in the third person. It's like Rivka is a wonderful person. She always does chesed for her friends. She's always thinking about others. She enjoys baking, cooking, and hanging out with her nieces and nephews. It's like it's just copy paste. Like frankly, like there's nothing unique about that. And the fact that you can't bring yourself to write about yourself and be honest and a little bit vulnerable, it's like, what is it? Are we adults, or is this like a mom presenting their son or daughter? So I think those are just some pet peeves that we could maybe improve the system a bit if we work on those. Um, yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've spoken about these profiles on shidduch resumes, and first of all, you could tell right away the religious level of the girl based on their whether they have a bio or they don't. The ones without bios that are strictly all just facts about their family, they're more on the yeshiva Shavelt side. You could just tell right away. The more bio is a little bit more of the modern side for sure. But I've legit seen thousands of resumes. They're all the same.
Right.
My friends will describe me as so nice, just the nicest human being. You like how Shadchanim will like describe someone there, and they just use the word nice like 12 times over. What
Well,
they're telling you is that we don't actually know the person because
I mean,
we can't actually tell you anything.
that's not even the worst. Like if they just say nice, I'm like, okay, maybe they're just like a nice person, right? But if for me, the red flags go higher the more they laud the person. like the more incredible adjectives they use. Balaska said, always there for a friend, like incredible, one of a kind. Like the more they do that, the more it has, I'm like, okay, there must be some skeletons somewhere because nobody's actually like that. And why are you
Right.
feeling the need to jazz them up so much? Why can't you just say they're a normal person, they're good, they do X, Y, Z, and I think it'll be a good fit. The fact that you have to jazz them up this much, it makes me, it raises some concerns for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that in terms of takeaways, like I think for the shadchanim, like try and even if you have a bunch of people, like try and like get to know them, try and really talk with them, and big like important thing, find out what their deal breakers are because you don't want to waste their time and your own time setting things that are just non-starters. And I think when you mentioned like events, you probably talked about this in other podcasts, but like meet the shotgun events, I just find it kind of ironic. Like I think it makes sense to have like a singles event where there also are shadchanim that people can talk to if they want to. But to have the main thing be talk to the shadchan or hear some shadchan like give a speech about something, like what are we doing? Like you have a bunch of single
Right.
people here, like talk to each
Yeah.
other. So I think like just the main thing, just empowering singles. I'll just give a shout out, by the way, there's an organization in Baltimore called a Single Impact. And I don't know too much about them, but like there's sort of their mission statement is really empowering singles and getting rid of stigmas of like divorcees and widows and whatever it is, or older singles, and just like letting them take the lead. So I think anything that we can do as a community on the shotgun side, on the parent side, and most importantly on the singles side themselves, because like that's the buck stops with us. Like we can't really just blame the whole system for our failings or whatever it is. Like I think we need to take responsibility and try and create communities where people take initiative and treat each other like adults and sincerely think of them for themselves and give things a chance. And then I guess brings me to the other takeaway, which is as a single who's getting suggestions or who's meeting people, like just go for it. Even if you're not so sure. And again, like this is a fine line. This does not mean that shadchanim should then pressure their people. Oh, just go for it. Come on, she's close enough. Right? Like no, if somebody's saying no, like I've thought about it, and I'm just not attracted to them, or they're just not what I'm looking for. Respect that, right? But just from on a personal level, like really look for a good reason not to before going for it, and before breaking something off early, because a lot of times these things can develop. I mean, like I said, we're a community where we value getting married, having children, we're like family. We're a very family centered culture, right? And I don't believe that there's like one person out there for each person. I think that there's a lot of people who you can make it work, and you can make them be that one person. So, the single side, I think that's something we have to keep in mind. And like I said, I think the more the merrier. There's Loop, there's these WhatsApp groups where people post themselves or post their friends. There's a Facebook group called Points of Contact, also a website. It's like sort of similar to Shagririm, but not sure the exact difference is. There's Corona Crush, which I love because even I've only gone on like a couple of days from it, but I try and go on whenever they have it, which is like once a month, and I always meet the most interesting people. Because like my settings, I think are a little bit wider, so it's like sometimes people in Europe or just Israelis or just people I would never have met otherwise, or never have gotten through the Shidduch system. What else? There's Meet Jew, which is like a Facebook group that came up during COVID where people just
Meet
post about
you.
themselves. Yeah, it's great. It was
Fine.
called Meet Jew University Dating. It's like one word, Meet Jew, and they made a post grad and the young professionals and whatever. And it's not just Orthodox; it's everybody, and like thousands of members. I'm not sure how active it is now, but it's just a cool thing to we have social media, like let's utilize it to get as far as we can. And honestly, like you have Facebook, like we've all done this, like people you may know, and it's like this girl keeps popping up, she's cute, what's her deal? Do I have a mutual friend? Let me message them. And if you're feeling bold, like even message the girl herself, like why not? Like what do you have to lose? Sometimes they'll ignore it, sometimes they'll just politely say no, but like you have nothing to lose. And then
Right.
the last thing about friends who you do ask, so you ask a mutual friend, what do you think of this person for me? Can you make an introduction? I'm a very big believer in that case. Like the friend should not be the one like saying, I don't think it's I don't see that for you. Like let the girl or let the guy say that. Let the other half say that. Unless you like really, really know and you explain why. Because I've had that happen to me and it's very frustrating. I think if one party is interested, and you should at least find out what the other party thinks, unless there's a very good reason not to. So.
Yeah. I mean, the way, yeah, the thing about like Loop and all these other things, my biggest critique is again just not, and I want to, love to hear your take is, I just WhatsApp groups, things like that, when people just post, I feel like the sheer amount of just the forwarding versus the knowing, which I think is why I haven't used Shagririm Balev, but I think what seems to make it stand out a little bit more to me is just that personalization, where there's a certain layer of just what do you call it, quality assurance, I would say, if that makes sense, versus just the forwarding. Because the two matches that I made, I wouldn't have made them unless I knew, I either knew the person or I knew the person who really knows the person. But I don't think that would ever happen if it was just send a resume type of thing. I don't know. That's just my own take.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I think with the groups, a lot of times it's like you just sort of you go in the group and you sort of scroll and see if anyone catches your eye. Sometimes the admins will like send someone to you specifically, but I don't feel like I'm inundated with that. So yeah, but I hear your point for sure. In terms of Loop, like they have this new thing like the daily batch where they'll send you like 10 or profiles. In the afternoon they'll send you, this is your daily 10 profiles. It's like people who are not in your loop but who are in groups that you're in. Like Anglos in Israel or people from LA or whatever it is. And it's you can request an intro or set them up with somebody, and I try and do that with with everyone on there. It takes like 2 minutes, and again, like I understand the frustration of like you want to put thought into it, you don't want your time to be wasted, but a lot of times, like these things are not like unless someone has something like if you have something very specific that like you should put that in your profile, right? People, and by the way, people like on Loop, for example, like if they don't have and if it's just like their picture and nothing else in their basic info, like it's I've had people tell me like it's less likely for them to be interested. And I think if you have like a deal breaker, like put it on there or put like what you're looking for. And yeah, I do agree with you for sure. Like I'm a big, I'm a single and an ambassador on Shagririm, and I think the world of them. And I do think there is an extra step of quality. I guess all I'm saying is just that like we should also, again, to the extent that you can handle it, like don't overwhelm yourself. It's just like not for you and just gonna get you frustrated. But I think if you're in a place where you're okay with having sort of low expectations but high hopes, or just like why not, then I think it's good to take advantage of all the platforms we can.
Yeah, I love what you said about, I think people should actually write a real bio that is actually about themselves, which I think probably is the biggest thing we're missing overall. I think like I actually, out of the 6,000 resumes I've seen, there was one that actually stood out. One of them that actually read like, I'm a traditional woman. I'm looking for a traditional husband. Things like that. I'm not a feminist or whatever. I'm like, that actually stands out to me because it's kind of attractive in my opinion. But usually, again, like I think what we said, like if you look at everyone's profile, like I love spending time outdoors. Nobody cares. Everyone likes spending times outdoors. Like anything, like I don't know if I don't like to make things so like black and white, but maybe there should be just like 2 or 3 just questions that like, everyone should answer. What's your biggest deal breaker? And like just everyone writes that and just be more factual about certain things.
Hinge
and
is
I feel like
that.
you'll just do better. Hinge is great. The only issue with Hinge, everyone on there is a bunch of liberals. Like so that's just what I've.
I don't know.
Taken.
I haven't been on it too much, such as since I made Aliyah. But I do like that feature they have where you choose the questions and it's like you fill in the blanks or you put a picture and a comment or something like that, and it's like you can sort of choose to put stuff that stands out. Or you can even, and when you're reviewing a profile, and you're matching, you can not just like them, but you like their answer or you reply to their answer. So it already starts the conversation there. Yeah, I hear you. I think, it is like, look, some people don't like that being outdoors though. I'll be honest. Like, I don't know. I think it's nice. Like if you have a few hobbies that like, or also it's not just listing the hobbies, but it's like how you say it. So some people will be like, when I'm not working, I'm either, baking or hiking or reading a good book. Or when I'm not learning, or like what's their main thing that they do? Is like hanging out with friends, like very high on the list. Is like hanging out with their family or niece and nephew, like very high on the list. So it's like you can sort of judge based on that a little bit. But I agree, like that shouldn't go on for too long, and like you should try and have more like meaty things in there more prominently, so that you can get to something that's unique. I think especially with how many resumes there are, profiles there are, like we all get used to sort of speed reading them, and sometimes you'll need something to jump out for it to really stand out.
Yeah, like I've offered to rewrite some of my friends' resumes who are girls. Like for example, one of them I wrote personality with that like greater sign over money or whatever it is. I don't know. I feel like if a guy said that, if a guy saw that, I feel like it would stand out to that. It definitely stand out to me. But yeah. Anyways, yeah. Any other final thoughts before we head out?
Um, yeah, I guess not. I think. Well, I guess one last thing is that
Sure.
like I mentioned, the Israeli privacy laws just because of security situations, so that it's more strict. And I don't know about Shagririm, but this some other sites have like had to change they don't put last names or whatever it is. And like
Interesting.
obviously that's serious. I mean, if Iran can get access to certain things, like of course that's a priority to take care of that. But like in general, I feel like even before that there was this big thing about privacy, and Shagririm's very big on that. And like on one hand, I really understand that. Um, on the other hand, like part of me is like, what do we have to hide? Like again, if the whole point is to be adults and to try and like
Right.
and you just like you're not pouring out your. When I said make a mission statement, I don't mean like pour out your soul and really reveal your like darkest secrets. Like just
Right.
hey, this is a bit about me. This is what I care about. This is my basic info. I'm from here. I went to maybe this university or I studied this. Like that's anyway. Anyone could just Google you and pretty much find that. So I'm not really sure, or it's like, is it some kind of shame? Like, oh my gosh, they're single and they have a dating profile. Like, what? That's all of a sudden a stigma. Like, I'm not exactly sure what the concern is. So I think
People are
that's another
terrified.
thing.
People are
I
legit
don't know.
It's crazy.
Like, yeah, if your contact info's on there for
Oh
sure,
no, not
or
even like
if
that. Like they're
yeah,
legitimately afraid of talking about themselves, like in a
right,
meaningful way, versus
right.
just giving the standard. And I think that if they actually put something that actually stood out, but it was right now today, it's probably going to be a little bit different from the norm because obviously if you're going to stand out, you'll be a little bit different. I can't tell you if I had a nickel for every girl that told me like I really like what you wrote, but I'm not going to put it on there because I just want to be like everybody else, or I feel uncomfortable doing it. I'd be a billionaire. And I don't know what it
Yeah,
is. I don't know what it is. I'm like, you want to continue on the cycle of just like getting all the same stupid whatever, or you actually want to do something different and actually try to help yourself. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, nothing to lose, right? If it's not working so
Yeah,
far, give it a shot for a couple
exactly.
months at least. Yeah,
If something, what's the? I think the Albert Einstein quote. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
yeah.
That's the way I view it. Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, I cut you off, so I don't want to.
No,
But
that
yeah,
was it. I mean, yeah,
but
just
yeah,
just I guess the theme here is just like, be adults. Like that's what we're trying to do here. So like, don't have your parents do it. Don't rely on your shotgun too much. Like just write your thing, put yourself out there, talk to someone you're interested in, give it a shot, and
it's really that
yeah,
simple. It's really that
yeah.
simple. But yeah, anyways, I really do appreciate the time, Elliot. If anyone wants to reach out to you, do you want them to contact me first, or do you want to have them contact you directly?
They can contact me directly, I guess. I don't want to necessarily say my contact info on here though.
Yeah.
So maybe they can reach out to you, I guess.
So
Then, yeah.
they'll have them reach out to me.
Yeah.
Reach out to goodforshidduchim@gmail.com. And yeah, and I'll put you guys in touch. But anyways, I really do appreciate the insights. I think they were really, really, really good. I feel like a lot of singles could really benefit from what you had to say.
Well, thanks so much for having me on and having my mom on. I'll try and think of any other family members who should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
All right.
appreciate what you're
Yeah.
doing. I think it's really important to keep talking about this stuff, and hopefully we'll, make some change.
Amen. Amen. We can only hope for the best, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Until next time. And remember, everything will always be about Shidduchim. Catch you in the next episode.